What's up, everybody? Jimmy Smith. I'm back to preview John Jones versus Dominic Reyes, of course, UFC 247. I've been out for a little bit, partly because I've been doing a lot of SiriusXM radio because Luke Thomas has been out with the Super Bowl and he was out for a week before that. So I've been doing a lot of that. And everyone in my household got sick but me. So I've been doing double duty at home, so haven't had a lot of free time. So now there's a fight to talk about, doing the pre-fight on this one. Compelling card. I think it's going to be some very, very interesting fights and a really interesting main event that's going to spend a lot of time to go over. So let me drive by the main card here. Derek Lewis versus Ilir Latifi. I see this fight going Derek Lewis's way. Ilir Latifi at 205 had trouble with hard-hitting fighters. We saw that against Volkan Oezdemir, guys who bring pressure, guys who don't give him a lot of space. He has good versatility. He's stocky. He's strong. Two issues he's had is he tends to go for the takedown, and then if it doesn't go his way or he has to over-pursue for a takedown, he runs out of gas. He has trouble keeping fresh when he has to use his ground game against a big physical fighter. Well, that's what he has in front of him, Derek Lewis. Also, he has trouble when he has to step backward. He's not the most versatile striker in the world. He's not going to cut angles and switch stances and move around and really confuse you as you come in. That's not going to happen. Volkan Oezdemir hit the gas in the second round, was able to hurt him, push him back, and finish him. Derek Lewis is a harder hitter than Volkan Oezdemir, and this is at heavyweight. So the problem is I think Derek Lewis is physically a bit too much for him. Pushes him back, gets him on his heels, and if Derek Lewis can do nothing else, he can knock you out. That's what he's great at. He's not the most versatile heavyweight in the world. There's not a lot he can do. Doesn't have a ton of ways to win. But if he puts hands on you, he's going to finish you. And I think Ilir Latifi is a guy who couldn't really get over the hump at 205. I don't see it happening at heavyweight. I just think he's a little bit outgunned, and especially in this fight, where he's had trouble with aggressive, heavy punches in the past, that's what catches up to him this time against Derek Lewis. Mirsad Bektic versus Dan Ige. This is an interesting one because Mirsad Bektic was a guy I expected a lot out of in this division early on in his career. And then Darren Elkins, he loses the comeback fight there, a fight he was winning. That fight could have been stopped 3 times. Elkins comes back and knocks him out. Sucks. Obviously a disappointing setback for him. He rattles off 2 in a row, beats Ricardo Lamas, and then Josh Emmett knocks him out. So he's had some road bumps in his last few fights. Now, no shame in the loss of Josh Emmett. That guy's an excellent fighter, a very hard puncher as well. He clips you, he's going to put you down, and that's what happened. The thing about Ige right now is Ige has momentum. He's won his last 4 fights, 1 knockout, 1 submission, 2 decisions, so he's on a good streak. The difference is he doesn't have a lot of names on his record. Hasn't fought under the big lights a lot, not a lot of main cards against big names. Now, Mirsad Bektic isn't a huge name, but he just has more experience against better fighters. So I think it's a matter of momentum versus experience. I think experience and tactics win out. Dan Ige, known for his submission game. That's what he's best at. But Mirsad Bektic, great with his feet, and he's good at keeping fighters at a distance. Good combinations, good range, gets good extension on his punches. What I think he does is he's able to keep Ige at a distance. He makes it a tactical fight, a long-range fight, and probably ends up winning by decision. I don't think he takes a lot of risks coming off a knockout. And, of course, the Darren Elkins knockout, that's 2 in his last 4. I don't think he wants to take a lot of risks. He doesn't want to get in a stand-up brawl again. I think it's an outside game, and his technique wins over. I think he probably wins by decision. Then we have Juan Adams versus Justin Tafa. The only reason this is a tough one to kind of look at is the guys are so similar. Stocky, strong, hard-hitting heavyweights that barely make 265. The difference here, neither guy has really had success in the UFC yet. Justin Tafa losing to Jürgen de Krat, coming off a terrible performance against Greg Hardy. Here are the 2 X factors. Number 1, Juan Adams just has more time in the UFC than Justin Tafa. He's had 3 fights. Yes, he's 1-2, but he just has more minutes in the UFC, might be a little bit more comfortable. Also, the loss against Greg Hardy, Juan Adams put a lot into that. Meaning, remember, there's a lot of trash talk and all this stuff saying his ex-wife encouraged him and all this stuff, his ex-girlfriend, whatever. Very personal. And he lost in 45 seconds. That's the kind of loss that either totally wrecks you as a young fighter or it makes you focus. You're motivated by that. You don't want to get embarrassed again, and you're going to come and make it right and all these things. He's much taller than Tafa. That's one advantage. Tafa's only 6 foot. He's 6'5". I think physically he brings everything to this fight. I really do. I think physically and mentally, Adams brings everything to this fight against Tafa. Probably finishes him. Just the nature of the two heavyweights, probably in the first round. I predict a quick finish when he gets an early knockout over Justin Tafa. But they're both similar. They're both hard hitters. Could go either way, but I'm going with Juan Adams. Valentina Shevchenko, Caitlin Chookagian. I like Chookagian. I really do. I think she's an excellent fighter. But to me, in this division, and in most women's divisions, other than 115, the song remains the same. There's one great champion. There's one. And it's Shevchenko in this weight class. One thing about Chookagian, she tends to go the distance. She hasn't had a KO since 2016. Losses and wins. She tends to go the whole time. I don't see her winning a decision in this fight. I just don't see that happening. Shevchenko has too many weapons. She's too versatile. She's too strong. She hits like she's a weight class heavier. Great ground and pound. I don't see the ground game going well for Chookagian. I don't see any of it going well. I think Shevchenko controls this fight. Might not get a finish simply because Chookagian's durable. But the issue with 25, 35, and 45 is there's one great champion and then there's everybody else. Now, outside of 115 pounds in the UFC or anywhere else. And I just think that Shevchenko is just a level better. She's on a great streak right now. She's full of confidence. Everything's gone well for her. And the move down to 125, that's her natural weight class, and she just has too much power. She's too powerful. She's too strong. She's too accurate. Great combinations. Hasn't really had, so far, a close fight at 125. Jędrzejczyk put up a good fight. Carmouche was able to go the distance. That's great, but I don't see many challenges for her unless there's a rematch with Nunes at 35. I just don't see many challenges at 25 yet. That next great challenger hasn't come up yet. And so I once again, I think it's Shevchenko. I think it might be late or a decision just because Chookagian is durable, but I think it's a one-sided beating. Jon Jones versus Dominic Reyes. I'm going to be very honest here. I haven't yet made up my mind about my pick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you guys and gals through my logic here. This is what I'm thinking about everything, and see if I can come to a conclusion by the end. No one has beaten or will beat a prime Jon Jones. That's it. End of story. No one's going to. Jon Jones, depending on your definition, has wiped out and is in the process of wiping out 3 generations of top light heavyweights. All of them. Now, if you go back to his initial run when he won the title, he beat all the old champions, all right? Starting, of course, with Mauricio Hua, Quentin Jackson, Lyoto Machida, Rashad Evans, Vitor Belfort, all the old school guys, Chael Sonnen, all the old guys. He wiped them all out. Then what was next? Glover Teixeira, Gustafsson, DC, that generation that hadn't held the title previously. He beat all of them. I would call Anthony Smith and Thiago Santos his third generation of fighters. Now, he isn't completely through that generation. I think very much Dominic Reyes is part of that, but he's in the middle of another generation. No one's going to match this. He's the greatest 205-pounder of all time. The last fighter I thought that would give him trouble was DC, just because DC's skill set's very different, and with the wrestling and the rematch, and I thought DC would give him a lot of problems and ends up knocking him out. Of course, it was overturned because of the drug test, but the deal to me is, if you bet against Jon Jones, what you're betting is that time finally catches up with him. That this opponent, even though, in my opinion, he doesn't bring anything he hasn't seen before, that just the years finally catch up to Jon Jones. I don't think anyone beats Jon Jones at his best or near his best. And he's shown that over and over and over again. So, Dominic Reyes, an excellent fighter. Undefeated, big, skilled, strong, steps forward. Not super experienced, of course, but, you know, an excellent fighter with real skills. Okay, 7-0, doesn't know how to lose yet. The thing for me, great win over Chris Weidman, although obviously a puffed-up middleweight. Does he bring anything Jon Jones hasn't seen before? No. The one thing that he brings that has caused Jon Jones problem in the past is he's just as big as Jon Jones. When you saw them face off, first thing I thought is, man, Reyes is big. Reyes is big. The only other fighter that seemed to like match up height-wise and size-wise was Gustafsson, and he gave him the toughest fight of his career. Obviously, doesn't have the range of Jon Jones. No one does, but decent range, 77 inches. But does he bring anything tactically Jon Jones hasn't seen before? No. So, to me, the operative thing is, has Jon Jones slowed down enough that a fighter that is just solid, really solid, explosive, powerful, can catch him, can beat him? So, I look at his last couple fights, and there are some troubling signs if you're a Jon Jones fan. Against Anthony Smith, we didn't see the explosive, unorthodox, crazy attacks, spinning stuff. We didn't see any of that. We saw a much more measured Jon Jones. Kept distance a lot, kept the range, a lot of groundwork, and was able to stay ahead the entire fight. Now, he didn't turn it up and do anything crazy, but it's like being a half a mile ahead in a marathon. You don't have to do anything crazy. Just keep the pace. You don't have to sprint at the end. You're ahead. Just make sure your opponent doesn't catch up with you. And that's what he did. We saw a very intelligent fight against Anthony Smith. But there are two signs usually when a fighter is kind of past it or getting there. Number one is their chin is shot. They just take punches they didn't used to take, and it hurts them a lot more. Haven't seen that from Jon Jones. He's always been hard to hit. I haven't seen any strikes in his last couple fights that make me think, oh, his chin is gone. And he hasn't been through the kind of wars that usually take the chin away from you. Secondly, they can't pull the trigger offensively. A lot of fighters, boxers, anybody in combat sports, when they start getting on in years, they just can't throw like they used to. They're not offensively sound. They can't pull the trigger. Whatever made them throw punches with confidence before isn't there anymore. In the Santos fight, he was not ahead. Any reasonable observer could tell you that was a very close fight. He was fighting a wounded opponent. It was essentially on one leg. I think I had it tied going into the fifth round, and I said, okay, Jon Jones has to turn it up in this round to get something done here and really ice this. He could lose his title. And he didn't. He won the fight, but there wasn't that, okay, I have to win this. This guy's on one leg, throw some leg kicks, go for a takedown and finish this. And he didn't. He went with this stay safe kind of style, kept him in a distance, and really didn't turn it on. And I remember watching it going, man, he might let his title slip away from inactivity. And so that's not a good sign at all, because Santos didn't really bring anything, in my opinion, that he hadn't seen before. Once again, explosive guy, really commits to his punches, but a 185-pounder going up to 205, not a natural 205er. And Jon Jones seemed unwilling to engage, and that's a bad sign. So, the other side of my brain says, well, he's had other bad performances, most notably OSP. He did not look good. He didn't look that explosive, didn't look that sharp. And in the rematch with DC, he blew him away. So he's come back from performances like that and done well. Another thing that is normally a negative, I think is a positive, is he's given interviews recently about Stipe, about Israel Adesanya. Now, normally I don't like that. I don't like a fighter going, after I beat this scrub, I'm going to take on these guys. Well, that scrub can knock you out. I usually like seeing a fighter really, really focused on his next fight. But at this point in his career, once again, going on the third generation of 205-pounders, he's in the middle of wiping out, you have to find motivation somewhere. And he's been vocal about, I wasn't as motivated for my last couple fights. I've been there, done that. No loss right now is going to really, he doesn't want to lose, but it doesn't affect his all-time legacy, anything like that. He's already an all-time great, the all-time greatest at 205. What keeps him motivated? If Israel Adesanya and Stipe winning a title at heavyweight and beating Israel Adesanya, the champ at 185, if that means something to him and really motivates him, I think he'll really do well against Reyes. I think that might be the edge he needs. A little bit of, all right, once I get past this, man, I can't just win a decision. I have to win in a matter that's going to let Stipe and Israel Adesanya know, I'm coming for you. If I want these big fights, I got to pimp these fights that I'm fighting now. I have to really go after it, get that big water cooler knockout, and then I can lift up the belt and go, you're next. Rather than another Thiago Santos performance where he wins a decision that's super duper close and people go, I don't know if I want to see him against Stipe. I don't know. You don't want to give Israel Adesanya or Stipe ammunition to go, oh, I'm going to kick your ass. Look how you looked. You don't want that. You want that dominant performance to really show them that you're still on top and you're still number one. So those are all the factors in my head right now. I think there's not enough evidence that Jon Jones is off the cliff and finished. The only thing that's going to catch Jon Jones is Father Time. That's it. No fighter with a special skill set is going to go in there and beat a 205-pound Jon Jones near his prime. It's not going to happen. So, is he past that point? There's not enough there yet for me. I still think he puts together an excellent performance against Reyes because he wants these big fights later. And he still feels he has more to prove, especially to those guys. So I think Jon Jones has a throwback performance. I think he does very, very well in this fight, and he retains his title. If I'm wrong, I'm going to be dramatically, horribly wrong because Jon Jones really can't pull the trigger anymore, and Reyes goes through him. And we're going to know very soon. I'm picking this way. I'm picking Jon Jones has once again, a throwback performance. But if he doesn't, and he really is hesitant, Reyes is the wrong fighter to be hesitant against. And I think it'll show very quickly if there's a problem. So I'm going with Jon Jones, but if I'm wrong, I'm going to be dramatically, horribly wrong. And I'm going to be here to talk about it afterward. Thank you so much. Hear from me after the fight.